Alright, so this is episode 1 of designing and building a 400 watt RF dummy load. So basically, to get this built, I'm going to utilize 4 100 watt resistors. So basically 4 times 100 watts. And there are some resistors for sale online that are 100 watt wire wound with little heat sinks built onto them. And I got an example of one right here. Hold on just a second. Right here. Now this is not the ones that I'm going to be using, but this right here is an example of what I'd be using. So these are little resistors, and they're designed for dissipating 100 watts each. And what we're going to do is we're going to use 4 of these in parallel. And the schematic is going to look like this right here. So it's super simple. So basically we're going to have one, two, three, four. So we know these are going to have to be at 100 watts. Each. So we'll just go ahead and write that down. And that right there is kind of our basics. Move the camera down just a little bit here so you can kind of see what we got going on. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 resistors in parallel. Now, most radio equipment that amateurs use is 50 ohms. Is 50 ohms impedance. It's not perfect 50 ohms, I believe, but it's 50 ohms. Now, basically what we're going to do is we're going to do some simple math here to figure out what our resistors need to be. So we need to come up with a way to figure that out. So what we're going to do, and I've already done this ahead of time, but I'm going to see if I can remember how to walk y'all through this. See if I can walk y'all through it. So we're looking for 50 ohms. And if I remember correctly, there's an algebraic formula for it, but I hate algebra. I've always hated algebra, and I don't like it. And I use it only if I need to, like bare minimum. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little bit of guessing around, so y'all get an idea of how you can half butt it. So we're gonna do, say we'll come up here and do 100 ohms divided by 4. Well, that gives us 25 ohms. We can do, let's see if we can do 150 ohms divided by 4. Now that's 37.5 ohms. So we're getting closer to where we need to be. So we know they're not 100 ohm, we know they're not 150 ohm, so let's do 175. 4. And that brings us up to 43.75 ohms. OHM, OHM, OHM. So we're getting closer and closer as we do this. And like I said, this is this is kind of a half-butted way of figuring it out on the fly if you don't want to use algebra. And you can do this with a calculator. I'm just writing it down so you'll kind of see so y'all can kind of see what I'm doing here. Move my camera a little bit there because it's not the best camera for this kind of setup. It's the only thing I had that would fit on a little bipod thing I got here holding my camera up. So basically, we're getting close. So let's do 200 ohms divided by 4. And what does that give us? 200 divided by 4 equals 50 OHM. Alright, so, and I could be doing this wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it's done. At least that's how I've done it before and got it to work just fine. So we've got 200 ohms divided by 4 resistors equals 50 ohms. So now we know these need to be 200 ohm, 200 ohm. My writing is terrible, but 200 OHM, 200 OHM. Alright, so this is basically it. We need 4 200 ohm resistors, and what we're going to do is we're going to connect these in parallel. Now these are connected in parallel. And when all these are connected in parallel, it'll look at our radio. Radio's going to look at it and see it as a 50 ohm load. Then all I got to do is just take your little PL259, the radio hook up there, and you're going to take your center pin and connect it to one side. And you can take your negative side and you can connect it to the chassis of your metal enclosure here. You're going to put a little metal enclosure, and they sell them on eBay. They're not very expensive, like $25 for one of those little hobby cases. And you can connect it directly to the chassis ground if you want to, or you can go and just take a wire and run it right to the back of the PL259 where you're going to bolt it to your case. And this right here is going to be our fundamental design for our 50 ohm 400 watt, because each one of these resistors can dissipate for 100 watts. And then as it's dissipating that, you want to keep an eye on it, but most ham radio transceivers only put out 100 watts. There are a couple that do 200 watts, and even if they did 200 watts, this is still rated over half of what that radio can put out. So it should be able to handle it just fine. And it's air cooled, so it's going to be inside the case. There's not going to be a lot of air holes in this case because it doesn't come from the factory that way, but you can drill some air holes in it, put a fan on it. You can get as fancy with it as you want to get. But I'm just going to do a straightforward 400 watts air cooled. It's just going to basically, because I don't intend on holding it for extended periods of time, and it's going to work just fine for that. So this is kind of episode 1 of that, and just kind of wanted to get this video started and get it going for y'all. So that's it. So little review: 100 divided by 4 is 25, 150 divided by 4 is 37, 175 is divided by 4 is 43.75, and 200 divided by 4 is 50 ohms. And you can use this formula to figure out, if you wanted to use 5 100 watt resistors or 6 100 watt resistors, you could do it the same way. So let's, for example, let me pause it. So if I wanted to use, let's use the 300 divided by 6 is 50. So if we wanted to use 6 resistors instead of 4 and make it 600 watts, all we would need to do is take 300 and divide by 4 equals 50. And then we would have Oh no, my bad. I did that wrong. It's 6. There we go. See, getting ahead of myself there, writing wrong there. But nonetheless, 300 divided by 6 will give you 50 ohms. O-H. Yeah. So then you can make a 600 watt RF dummy load. They're not very hard to build. And I intend on, once I'm done building this design, I'm going to try to get it nice and clean and make it darn near perfect. And I'm going to offer them on my eBay store. I'm going to, see if I can't sell them. I'm pretty sure someone out there wouldn't mind buying them already pre-made. And if I can do that, I might have 2 or 3 of them. I might build 2 or 3 of them and have them up there for sale. But this is episode 1 of building a 400 watt RF dummy load. And I'll get started on getting it put together and getting that part recorded. I might move my camera around, move my setup over there to the workbench, and when I'm done doing all of that, I'll get the resistors out of. I got them in the house where I ordered them, and we'll get the wiring them up and soldering them in, and then we'll hook it up to the nano VNA, which I have. It's sitting up here on the workbench. On the workbench. Right here. Got a little nano VNA, and we'll sweep it, and we'll see what it does. Until next time, this is the Ugly Off Grid, and thank you for tuning into my channel. And if you want to continue on with the project, feel free to subscribe so you get your little notification there. Mark the little bell so you see when I post my next video. And I look forward to having you along for the ride. My name's Tim, and see y'all later.